It all starts in a pretty standard corporate office. Or so it seems. The president, a mature guy with the face of someone who's lived more lives than your average main character, calmly looks through a drawer full of cigarette packs, each a different color, like he's picking his flavor of violence for the day. He finally picks one and pockets it like he's got all the time in the world. The secretary, looking like a waifu from a strategy game, reminds him it's time to leave. He, completely unfazed, adjusts his tie with a cigarette in his mouth, says he's just stepping out for a bit, and wishes her luck in the battle. The shareholder meeting. Nope, this is way more literal. As he walks off with the swagger of someone about to kick ass for fun, he mutters that he hopes the next guy puts up a fight. Like, he doesn't even pretend this is a tough mission. Dude's vibing way too hard. Looks like he's doing it for sport. Scene switch. The moon glows over a castle that looks ripped straight out of a JRPG cover. The Demon King's castle. And right at the gate, the classic adventuring party appears, led by a red-headed kid in a blue cape, dropping the iconic line, "At last! I've come this far." Yep, we've got ourselves a textbook Isekai protagonist. His name is Leo, and like any good Isekai lead, he got yoinked out of Japan by a sparkly goddess who urgently needed a savior to stop the demons. Basically, he got handed powers and a main quest out of nowhere. She gave him a magic gem, hit him with the guilt trip classic, "Only you can save us," and booted him straight into nightmare mode. Since then, Leo's been mowing down demons like their background NPCs, with a squad of girls who look like gacha game banner units. Between fights, he thanks the world, the goddess, his team. Basically anyone he can think of, because he feels like the final chapter is near. And of course, he closes it all with a smug smile that screams, "I'm the chosen one, bro." Leo takes a moment at the castle gates, glancing at his three companions. Ran, the spunky cat girl, Lilia, the intense elf swordswoman, and Mahal, the elegant mage with influencer energy. With a look like, this party's got serious plot armor, Leo reflects on how lucky he is. Then, without hesitation, he gives the signal to move. The Demon King's castle doors swing open, and the crew walks in like they're making a tournament entrance. But the scene that greets them throws everything off. Sitting on the throne, looking bored out of his mind, is the president, just casually puffing a cig like he's waiting in line at the DMV. Leo shouts, "Prepare to be defeated, Demon King!" But the suited guy doesn't even flinch. He just exhales a lazy puff, radiating existential boredom. Then he drops the bomb. They're too late. The whole squad freezes. Mahal wonders if this guy really is the Demon King, while Ran and Lilia just kinda short-circuit. The man stands and gives a sarcastic bow, apologizing if he startled the ladies. Then he introduces himself as a recovery agent. That line throws Leo so hard he nearly drops his sword. The whole group looks like, wait, is this a side quest or what? When they ask where the Demon King is, the man casually says he asked him to step out for a sec. But here's the kicker. His target isn't the Demon King. It's Leo. And before the hero can even process that, the guy steps up, grabs his shoulder, and says a name that makes Leo freeze. Tanaka Naoto. Leo flinches. That name, clearly from his past life in Japan, completely shatters him. Before he can speak, his team reacts. Mahal insists she doesn't know any Tanaka, only the great savior Leo Celestia. Ran and Lilia nod, ready to back him up. The man, completely unbothered, confirms it. He knows exactly who Leo is, and says his name with a weird mix of shade and nostalgia. Well, the great savior Leo Celestia. You've climbed pretty high in this new world, huh? Things get awkward fast. The SIG guy starts tearing down Leo's hero persona with the precision of a roast battle champ. First, he calls out how Leo dragged around girls who clearly aren't built for war, just to feed his savior complex. Then he accuses him of having a messed up past, harassing women, being on probation, and even a violent incident with a sex worker. Every line hits like a brick, and Leo's barely holding it together. The blow is brutal. Leo stumbles and tries to deny it, swearing he doesn't know what the guy's talking about. But the president isn't letting up. Calmly, he drops the line. It doesn't matter what world you're in, trash stays trash. And that smile when he says it. Absolutely soul-crushing. Taking advantage of the silence, the man turns to the girls and asks the nuclear question. Are they really here by choice? Their faces go dark. Mahal speaks first. She says Leo called himself a hero but forced her to join. Ran admits he saved her from a slaver, then used that to guilt-trip her into staying. And Lilia, hurt, says she thought it was for the greater good. Until all they brought was more bloodshed. Leo tries to defend himself, calling it all a misunderstanding, saying they're confused. But his voice is already breaking. He starts sweating, stumbling, and spiraling. This wasn't in the script, this isn't how it's supposed to go. His mind fractures under the pressure, and as the chaos takes over, he screams and blasts a fire spell, yelling at everyone to shut up. The perfect hero is breaking down in front of everyone. With his mind in ruins and pride gone, Leo unleashes his strongest move, Maximum Flame. A massive pillar of fire slams down on the president and the girls, engulfing them in flames while they look on like, yep, this went completely off the rails. The whole place erupts in fire and explosions. Leo stands there out of breath, with a nervous grin, staring at the mess he just caused. He starts laughing like a maniac, thinking he finally won. Says anyone who messes with his world deserves to burn. But just when he thinks it's over, a voice cuts through the flames. Good. Calm, but so serious that Leo freezes. He turns around and sees the president walking out of the fire, not a single burn on him, and his eyes glowing like a final boss in a video game. With that same chill face as always, the president walks up to him and says he respects guys with guts, but also makes it very clear he can't stand people who hurt women. Leo's panicking hard, no clue why his attack didn't work. The girls look at him in fear, while the president lights another cigarette like this is just round one. Leo's shaking. Between the cold sweat, the fear, and the confusion, the only thought in his head is, this dude's not human. The president's not just still standing, he's still smoking. And then he hits Leo with a line that just wrecks him. Calm as ever, he says Leo's level is beneath trash. Yeah, straight up like that. Leo freezes while 1,000 alarms go off in his head. Who is this guy? What is even happening? Nothing makes sense anymore. The president begins explaining, super chill, that he's on a mission. From who? None other than this world's god. Leo can't believe it. The same god who summoned him to save the world now wants him gone? The president confirms it plain and simple. The power that God gave Leo is being repossessed. That's it. His job is to take it back and ship Leo home. Basically, return to sender. Leo goes into full meltdown. Desperate, he pulls out his sword and warns the president not to come any closer. But the guy just walks forward, totally unfazed. Leo loses it and charges with his flaming sword, screaming in pure panic. And what happens? The president blocks it with a business card, like someone swatting a fly with a brochure. Leo stares in disbelief, unable to process how that's even real. The president, cool as ever, finally introduces himself. His name is Asuda, and he works for the Lotus Recovery Agency, specialists in reclaiming anything. Skills, bodies, debts, whatever's needed. And yes, he's the actual president. He hands over the card he just used like it's a regular business meeting. The card says it clearly, "We recover anything for you." Then, repeating Leo's full name, he delivers the cold line, "That power you've got now belongs to us." Leo hits full panic mode, cursing like it's his last prayer. He looks at his teammates in despair, but they're staring back at him with horror and disbelief, realizing the monster their so-called hero has become. Losing whatever sanity he had left, Leo snaps in pure rage. He screams as he unleashes his dark power, summoning creepy black chains that violently snatch the girls toward him. They're caught off guard, terrified, unable to fight back, completely immobilized. The vibe is no longer just tense. It's like a horror movie hostage scene mixed with an existential meltdown. With the girls at his mercy, Leo tries to bargain in full desperation, demanding the president leave right now or else he'll finish them off. The president just watches the scene unfold like he's sitting through a bad soap opera, waiting for the final twist. But Leo takes it even further, smiling like a total lunatic and swearing he won't hesitate to end them all. The girls, broken inside and out, barely whisper words of hate. The cat girl manages to say straight to his face that he's not a hero, just a monster in a human skin. Leo, completely unhinged, screams at her to shut up and hits her without a second thought. In full delusion, Leo starts ranting, saying it doesn't matter what he's done, hurting women, taking lives, he's still needed by this world. His true nature's now fully exposed, and there's no doubt anymore about what kind of villain he really is. Watching all this, the president smirks slightly. He sarcastically comments that the last guy whose powers he reclaimed said the exact same dumb stuff. Then mockingly wonders if that attitude is trendy now or something. After that brutal reality check, Leo starts to mentally break down. The president, still totally relaxed, looks at him with disgust and says that guys like him always end up the same, spouting the same garbage once they're cornered. Leo, refusing to accept defeat, makes one last desperate move, screaming in pain and rage as he channels a ridiculous amount of magical power. He's so unstable it's like watching a short-circuiting power line. With his eyes bulging, he unleashes his most extreme attack yet, firing off a hellish tornado of flames that threatens to vaporize even the girls he claimed to protect. The president watches it all without budging an inch. And just when it looks like it's over for the girls, he casually lifts one hand and with a simple snap of his fingers, shuts down the entire storm of magic, leaving everyone stunned, and the girls free from the dark chains. As everyone stares in shock, the president, cool as ever like he's picking up a takeout order, grabs a magic crystal he just snatched from Leo. He calmly announces that the recovery has been successfully completed, even thanking Leo with mock politeness for his unintentional cooperation. Leo collapses to the ground, confused and completely lost, as the president keeps explaining how, by showing his true colors so clearly, he made the whole job way easier. Then he drops a bombshell that leaves Leo more shook than ever. Now that his power's been taken, Leo's returned to his original body from Earth. And in front of everyone's completely stunned faces, there's no longer a handsome blonde hero pretending to be someone he's not. Just a messy, average dude named Tanaka Naoto. Tanaka Naoto looks at his hands, completely lost. He's no longer the dashing hero he pretended to be, but his original self, a messy, average guy who looks like he got kicked out of a Monday morning office meeting. The gray-haired guy in front of him watches with a half-smile and cold eyes. It's Hasuda, who seems to be enjoying every second of this public humiliation. With a mocking tone, he asks how it feels to be back in his real body, after all that time pretending to be someone he never was. Tanaka, barely processing any of this, starts hyperventilating. The girls notice it too. That's not Leo, that's a total stranger. A complete fraud. Tanaka breaks down, screaming that the body was his, that it was a divine gift, that it's not fair to take it away. He begs, sobs, throws a full toddler tantrum, pleads for it back, like that'll somehow restore a shred of dignity. But Hasuda breaks him even harder, tells him that God never chose him. There was no destiny, no prophecy, just a mistake. A cosmic screw-up that's now been fixed. And as if that wasn't brutal enough, he blasts Tanaka to the ground with force, like tossing out trash that started to stink. Tanaka curls up into a ball of despair, begging for forgiveness. Says he's learned his lesson, promises never to do it again, pleads to stay. But Hasuda, totally chill and not even bothering to argue, pulls out his phone and calls it in. Says he's got the body, come pick it up. Then, he changes his mind. Says he's giving Tanaka a second chance. And he doesn't mean it in a motivational, you got this way. He means it literally. He's going to be reborn. How? In classic ISEKAI fashion. By summoning a dimensional truck that smashes through the barrier between worlds like it's straight out of a fantasy soap opera. The truck shows up with flashing lights and screeching brakes. The girls can't believe their eyes. Hasuda smiles calmly, and when a guy steps out of the truck, he thanks him like he's his regular Uber driver. Tells him, as always, he was fast and super helpful. Out steps a figure that does not look human. Its head is like a half-cooked mutant tentacle, and its presence could freeze anyone's soul. He introduces himself as the cargo master, though he looks more like the final boss of a nightmare factory. Tanaka, what's left of him, screams, "Monster!" with the same energy as someone finding a giant scorpion in their bed. But no one else reacts. The new guy just asks if the package is ready. And Hasuda, totally unfazed, hands over Tanaka like he's an Amazon return. says that while he looks gross, the contents are fully intact. Guaranteed. The cargo master checks his package like someone inspecting a box of mangoes. No damage, no rot. Tentacle Head seems satisfied. The body's in good condition. Hasuda is already closing the deal. And just like that, Tanaka is sold. From here on out, his fate depends on the new owner. Tanaka tries to fight back, kicks, screams, drags himself, but they haul him away like a sack of potatoes. He begs to be released, says it hurts. No one answers, and they toss him into the truck like old furniture. And that's when Tanaka meets his new family. A group of goblins, all with glowing red eyes, slowly surrounding him, whispering, "Cold, cold. Help me." Like ghosts from a J-horror flick. Tanaka screams in terror, tries to get away, but the creatures hold him tight. In the middle of this waking nightmare, Tanaka lifts his head and asks Hasuda if this is what he meant by reborn. Hasuda, with his classic hell bureaucrat smile, confirms. Yep, he'll be reborn, just never said as a human. Tanaka freezes while the goblins grab him, dragging him into the darkness, ready for the next step in his transformation. And just when you think it can't get any weirder, the ISEKAI truck slams shut with a loud thunk. The girls watch in tense silence as the cargo van prepares to drive away. As the interdimensional truck fades into the distance, Hasuda turns around and is surprised to see the girls still standing there. He asks if they shouldn't be heading home now that it's all over. Even throws out a sarcastic line, the so-called hero has a new job now. So what are they waiting for? The three look at each other, uneasy. They've got every reason to leave, but none of them knows how to get home. Hasuda picks up on it, sighs, and with a laid-back gesture, says he'll handle it himself. But before leaving, he gives them one last piece of advice. Don't let yourselves get fooled again by guys like that. With a single clap, the girls are teleported back to their respective homes. Now alone, Hasuda checks his cigarette pack, notices he's out, and grumbles. But even that doesn't break his cool. He smiles calmly and tells himself he'll grab one on the way home. Because yeah, after collecting failed ISEKAI cases and dealing with fake heroes, the only thing on his mind is restocking his nicotine. The scene shifts dimensions, taking us back to the modern world, where a building called Black Dragon Castle appears. There, a mysterious white-haired girl in a fantasy-style long dress is clearly lost among the streets, signs, and humans. She talks to herself, trying to find Hasuda's office, but she's more lost than a tourist in Japan without Google Maps. While wandering, she accidentally bumps into a pretty intimidating guy. She apologizes immediately, but the man just stares with glowing red eyes and says nothing, and she freezes in fear. Suddenly, she hears someone mention a cash exchange point, exactly what she's been looking for. The guys from earlier are dropping a handful of glowing gems on the table. The old lady running the place examines them, and without much fuss, hands over a wad of bills. Minus her cut, of course. But one of the guys isn't happy at all with the result. He says there's no way that's the right amount, that they're being scammed. And in the background, the white-haired girl just watches, wondering if that granny is gonna make it out alive after pulling a stunt like that. The tension rises in the shop as the two goons start threatening the old gem exchange lady. They shout that she doesn't recognize the real value of the stones, call her an old witch, and even pull out a knife to teach her with a little pain. It's looking like they're seconds away from doing something very stupid. But then, a shadow rises from behind the counter. Not a sweet little granny. This lady's got a tongue longer than a CVS receipt and a look that's half demon, half mafia boss. With a monstrous transformation that'd scare any shonen villain, she lets out a terrifying scream and grabs the two punks like they're trash floating in a river. One of them tries to bribe her with extra coins, but it's way too late. She doesn't do cheap bribes. Gives them a choice: hand over something actually valuable, or she'll rip out their souls the hard way. Just as things are about to explode, Hasuda strolls in like it's just another Tuesday, greets her casually, and calls her Auntie Shiba. She immediately calms down at the sight of him and greets him sweetly, calling him President. Within seconds, her demonic form vanishes and she's back to looking like a bakery grandma. The white-haired elf who saw everything is left completely stunned watching this woman shift from hell boss to sweet old lady with just one hello. They chat like nothing's wrong, even with two guys trembling on the floor. They joke, say it's been a while since they saw each other because work's been crazy. Hasuda comments, half joking, half not, that broke folks like him don't get days off. The line makes the goons sweat even more. They're full panic mode now. Auntie Shiba kicks them out with a scream, promising to eat them whole if they show their faces again. They run without looking back. Then, as she stores the gems like nothing happened, she grumbles about how today's reclaimers are just talentless thugs. She and Hasuda sit down to talk shop. She notes that lately, lots of newbie reincarnates have been popping up, but none with the quality merchandise he brings in. Hasuda hands her the shiny blue crystal, saying this piece has actual value. The old lady inspects it and smiles, clearly impressed. The scene ends with Hasuda dropping a line that hits harder than it should. This job's tough, and if you last 5 more years, you're already lucky. We finally get a look at the whole system behind the recovery agency. Turns out, since gods can't directly interfere with the worlds they manage, they hire agencies like Hasuda's to recover the powers of reincarnated folks once they're no longer useful. Basically, they treat them like defective products or buggy updates. And yes, all the gods are clients. Because they're desperate to boost world performance like overworked middle managers. With no better ideas, they keep flooding worlds with reincarnates, giving them ridiculous powers to speed up change. But that just makes things worse. And when everything spirals, they come crying and begging the agency to bail them out. So what's the problem? When you hand that much power to a regular human, there are only 2 outcomes. They either rebel and destroy everything, or vanish and leave an economic crater the size of a black hole. That's why Hasuda says the current model is doomed to fail. Auntie Shiba, curious, asks if he's got any advice for better recovery. Hasuda thinks for a second, and gives a response that's more cryptic than helpful. Says it's like peeling a raw egg without breaking it. Pulling out just the inside without ruining the shell. Shiba stares at him like he just spoke dolphin, doesn't get it at all, but laughs anyway. After leaving the shop, Hasuda is approached by the white-haired elf, who now formally introduces herself. She's the goddess Artias. She thanks him for handling Tanaka Naoto, and asks how he's doing. Hasuda answers bluntly, the guy's starting from scratch, working hard. But of course, his body's been modified so much, he's no longer human. Right now, Tanaka lives as a goblin miner in a cave, smashing rocks day and night. And the worst part? His redemption arc will take about 200 years. Artias is horrified. Says that's way too long, it's cruel. But Hasuda gives her a look that says, I don't make the rules, I just enforce them. And reminds her that the recovery agency doesn't run on morals or ethics. If she's the one who sent him to that world, then she better live with the consequences. Before leaving, he gives her one last warning, in that sarcastic yet menacing tone. If she wants to stay pretty, she better not show up around here again. Because in that world, even goddesses can end up mining rocks if they mess with the wrong system. While Hasuda relaxes on a park bench like a classy retiree, his assistant calls with unexpected news. New clients are looking for him. And not just any client, one who's detected something strange. Apparently, there's a reincarnate living nearby who asked for a peaceful life. But his happiness level is so high, it looks like he's hacking the system with pure positive vibes. The camera shifts to that mysterious place. A corner filled with happy people sipping magic mushroom tea like it's a 5-star spa with lo-fi beats playing in the background. Everyone's smiling and giving thanks while the host, Magna-sama, serves them with a serenity that feels straight out of a meditation app commercial. Hasuda suspects something else is going on. He agrees to the meeting and heads back to the office, where he's met by a very peculiar woman named Kagaya Mira. Yes, woman. Who's requesting a skill recovery service. Hasuda introduces himself as the president. He's joined by Oya Yagi, a humanoid dragon with a permanent scowl who acts as his bodyguard or field agent. Also with them is Itakura, a silver-haired young woman who handles intel and seems to have more patience than the rest of the crew combined. After the formal introductions, Kagaya lays out her case. They recently got a reincarnated guy who only asked for crafting skills. No superpowers, no explosive magic, no insta-harem. Just wanted to make pretty things and live in peace. And, well, he's really pulling it off. The region where this guy lives has turned into a happiness paradise. Everyone's smiling, getting along, no drama, no chaos. But that's exactly the problem. The happiness meter is off the charts, and it's raising red flags among the gods and magical bureaucrats. Because in this universe, if something's going too well, odds are, it's hiding something. The scene kicks off with a visual explanation of the emotional balance that keeps the world stable. Happiness, pleasure, anger, and sadness all have to stay in harmony, or the system's performance crashes. Right now, happiness is overpowering everything else, and the system's manager is freaking out, afraid she'll get fired from Olympus HR. She admits these cases always go sideways and begs Sir Lotus, head of the agency, to fix the imbalance before she's booted. Lotus agrees, but charges his usual fee. He keeps half of everything he recovers. Not a cent less. With the deal sealed, Lotus and his dragon bodyguard Oya Yagi head off into the forest. Yagi brags that he's leveled up since the last mission, but his confidence dips when they reach a spiked wooden wall. The target village looks more like a luxury prison than a happy town. As the assistants discuss infiltration plans, Lotus puts out his cigarette and gives them a crash course in business etiquette. You walk through the front gate and greet people head-on. Period. Crossing the gate, the contrast is jarring. Sunny meadows, freshly sheared sheep, overflowing gardens, and neighbors singing as they work. The star of the show is Lord Magna, a young craftsman dishing out good mornings and earning dreamy sighs like he's handing out happiness coupons. Everything's so perfect it actually hurts. And that's exactly why they're there. But not everyone's smiling. Marie, a villager, is distressed because her husband left town 3 months ago and never came back. Her friends try to comfort her, but she ends up alone, crying on a tree stump. Before the tears hit, a gentle hand dries her face and asks her to stay calm. Still shaken over her husband's disappearance, Marie is comforted by Lord Magna, who explains that he personally sent Thomas to a distant city to gather tea ingredients. He assures her it's an important mission and nothing to worry about. Seeing she's still upset, he hands her a small bottle of violet liquid and suggests she drink it. Marie accepts and sips the potion. The moment it touches her lips, a wave of calm washes over her. The tea, made just for her, kicks in instantly. She smiles and says it's delicious. Just like that, her anxiety vanishes like it was never there. Back with the others, even Marie is surprised at how different she feels. Suddenly, the whole situation doesn't seem so serious, and she laughs softly, realizing maybe she overreacted. The kids and neighbors cheer for her improved mood, and Magna watches, satisfied, from afar. The villagers quickly express their gratitude. They all agree that since Magna arrived, the village has bloomed. Thanks to him, they can live in peace and joy. Magna accepts their praise humbly, but doesn't hide his true goal. He wants everyone in the village to be happy. Deep down, he vows to do whatever it takes to protect that happiness. Meanwhile, Oya Yagi uses the moment to pet a sheep, until his boss dryly asks since when he's into livestock. Suddenly, Magna notices the strangers and tenses up. They don't look like locals. He watches them with suspicion. The strangers greet politely. The president casually compliments the village. But when he calls him Ito Takashi, Magna freezes. The villagers whisper, confused, wondering if that's another name for Lord Magna. He stands silent, shocked. How do these men know his real name? Magna returns the greeting respectfully and introduces himself as the village chief. Hasuda, cool as ever, thanks him for the welcome and hands him a business card, introducing himself as a rep from the Lotus Recovery Service, accompanied by his subordinate Oya Yagi. They're not tourists. They were sent by a deity, with a clear mission, to collect his skill. The tension spikes when Hasuda reads the name on the request. Ito Takashi. Magna goes pale. Though he tries to stay composed, he doesn't understand why they're calling him that. He insists his name is Magna and says he doesn't know any Ito Takashi. Hasuda, puzzled, checks the documents and asks Yagi to read the history out loud. University graduate, corporate worker, seminar organizer. All matching his previous life. The confusion grows deeper. Magna still denies the identity, saying all he wants is for his village to be happy. The villagers immediately rally around him, defending him passionately. Some even yell at the visitors to leave him alone. Hasuda stays calm, But Yagi starts to notice something strange. The whole village seems caught in the same emotional trance. Everyone is way too loyal to Lord Magna, like he's their personal messiah. Things are heating up, but Magna raises a hand to quiet the crowd. With a diplomatic smile, he reassures them it's fine. Then, with perfect grace, he invites Hasuda and Yagi to his home for tea and a more relaxed conversation. Oya Yagi reacts with annoyance to Magna's offer, thinking he's messing with them. But Hasuda, calm as ever, says he's touched by the hospitality. Magna responds with serenity, saying it's his duty as village chief to treat guests well. Without further delay, he invites them to his home, while a few villagers watch nervously. The trio arrives at a simple but nicely decorated cabin, where Magna greets them politely and begins preparing tea for everyone. Meanwhile, Hasuda silently wonders if they're about to walk into something unexpected. A trap? A trick? A threat? Once seated, Hasuda cuts to the chase. He wants to get to the main topic. Magna agrees without hesitation and confirms he understands why they're there. He knows they came to recover his power. But when the young man's confidence shows, Yagi asks if he even gets what a recovery actually means. Magna doesn't flinch. He serves tea kindly and answers yes, though he suggests they not let it get cold. Hasuda, after a moment of doubt, tries it. And to his surprise, he likes it. Still, he stops his partner from drinking his. Then Magna starts explaining his skill. It's not just about brewing potions or fixing things. His power is flexible and practical. As he speaks, he draws a magic circle that lights up the floor and creates an energy field beneath Hasuda's feet. Without warning, the ground opens up and both agents fall into a dimensional trap. Hasuda keeps his cool, even while falling, cigarette in hand. Yagi, on the other hand, panics completely. Magna watches from above, calm as ever, making it clear that his talents go way beyond crafting. He doesn't just make stuff. He builds complex traps in a single move. He waves them goodbye, convinced they won't be meeting again. The two collectors crash into what looks like some kind of underground tunnel. Hasuda lights his lighter and takes in the place. An old waterway with a nasty smell hanging in the air. Looking for his partner, he finds him lying on the ground, alive, but dazed. Yagi tries to get up, but immediately freaks out when he spots a skull covered in purple mushrooms right in front of him. They continue through the area, discovering more human remains invaded by the same fungi. Hasuda quickly deduces they're parasitic mushrooms growing on skeletons, and Yagi, without realizing it, already has one stuck to his head. When Hasuda points it out, Yagi freaks out, unable to pull it off. As they walk through the tunnel, Hasuda concludes this is all Magna's doing, but calmly adds that tricks like this don't work on him. Still, with a disturbingly chill tone, he warns Yagi not to breathe too much down there. They've seen enough. Anyone who crosses Lord Magna ends up as mushroom mulch. With that in mind, Hasuda suggests continuing the exploration and uncovering the dark side of the Happy Town. His cigarette still lit, they keep moving. But before going much further, Yagi stops, alarmed. Something's coming. A monstrous foot steps out of the shadows, covered in mushrooms. Something's about to show itself. A new character stumbles into view, and honestly, he looks like a textbook example of how not to do alchemy. His skin's drier than old parchment, and mushrooms sprout from his nails. His blank stare and mumbled words make you wonder if his brain's still in there, or if it's been replaced by spores. Our guys watch him approach like, what kind of walking mushroom nightmare is this? The fungus guy asks who they are and how they got there. Hasuda reveals they're recovery agents sent to take Magna's power, accusing him of being a fraud. The infected man, confused, asks if they can really take that power. The suited man, with a salesman smile, confirms they can, but they'll need to shake things up and expose the guy's true nature. Before they leave, the poor infected man tries to stop them. He begs them to warn his wife and the villagers to run. Magna is a real threat. Barely standing, he drags himself forward, shouting for them to tell everyone to get out. Hasuda turns slowly and drops. And what do we get out of that? The infected man promises to spill all of Magna's secrets. He racks his brain, clearly feeling the clock ticking. Finally, he collapses. Exhausted, the fungus almost fully claiming him. But he manages to grab Hasuda's attention with his offer: valuable info in exchange for warning the villagers. Hasuda, with that classic "this just got interesting" look, agrees to hear him out. By the fire, the man starts spilling the truth like he's peeling mushrooms off his soul. He reveals that everyone in the village is under Magna's control. Not with magic, not with threats, with mushrooms. Yep, literal mushrooms. Anyone who consumes them feels such intense euphoria that they give up their body, soul, and common sense to Master Magna. Using that high, Magna took total control of the village. Oya Yagi looks like he just learned gravity's fake, while Hasuda starts connecting the dots. The infected man recalls how it all began. The village was small and simple, but people lived in peace. Then one day, Magna appeared. Messiah smile, powers straight out of a sci-fi loot box. Strange tech, miracle meds, mysterious abilities. In no time, he had everyone wrapped around his finger. Every elder, every leader, fell for him. Until even Thomas, the narrator, realized too late. In a bittersweet flashback, Thomas talks to his wife Marie, who's now fully devoted to Magna's cult. To her, Magna didn't just fix the village's problems. He did it so well that no one even talks about anything else. Her devotion runs so deep that when Thomas questions it, she just says there's no need for a reason to worship a god. And she says it with a smile more chilling than cute. By the time he realized it, most of the villagers were already Magna's slaves. The guy didn't need chains or whips, just mushrooms with built-in mind control. And like some conspiracy theorist with receipts, the guy gathered the few sane folks left to investigate this so-called Magna. What they found was explosive. Every piece of food Magna handed out was laced with spores that hijacked free will. And even worse, he was planning to spread those mushrooms beyond the village, like a gourmet drug lord with expansion plans. Just when they managed to gather proof, Magna found out, and of course, he wasn't gonna let it slide. He played it cool while dropping an arrogant line about how wise rats never find happiness. Then the worst came to light. All of the young man's allies were slowly consumed by the fungus, used as human fertilizer to grow more mind control shrooms. Straight up psychological horror movie material. Even Oniyagi and Hasuda are shook by how twisted the plan is. Barely alive, the guy hands Hasuda a memento from his comrades and a letter, begging him to open the villager's eyes. As he literally crumbles into spores, he whispers one last wish: for everyone to wake up. Hasuda, dead serious, accepts the mission without hesitation. He thanks him for the info and promises that from here on, it's in his hands. The guy, now dust, manages one final tearful smile and thanks him with his last breath. With resolve, Hasuda gathers the remains and prepares for what's next. The mission is crystal clear: wipe out that walking mushroom farm named Magna. Hasuda looks at a ring in his hand, Thomas's wedding ring, while Oniyagi admits it's been a long time since he felt this mad. Beside him, Hasuda, always calm with a cigarette in hand, tells Thomas not to worry. The two walk forward, declaring, no matter what, they always keep their promises. Cut to a totally different scene. A nighttime party, with food, lights, and a bunch of people cheering with raised glasses. Everything centers around Master Magna, who's being praised for another blessed day. The vibe is straight up cultish, with people idolizing him like some messiah with a catering menu. The celebration is cut short by a sudden explosion that leaves everyone stunned. And right when the tension peaks, in walk Hasuda and Oniyagi, strutting through the debris like they just came from a dangerous fashion runway. Hasuda casually greets them, while Yagi says they were late because Master Magna's welcome was a little too enthusiastic. But they didn't come empty-handed. They declare it's their turn to give thanks, with something big. Magna can't believe what he's seeing. He's shocked they escaped and starts hurling insults, but Yagi shuts him up with pure disdain. They're not there to talk. Hasuda gathers the crowd with theatrical flair, announcing it's time to reveal the truth behind the so-called Happy Village. With a cold smile and cigarette lit, he drops the bomb. They're going to show everyone what's really going on in this place. Hasuda steps forward with dead seriousness and reveals that the food Master Magna's been dishing out is packed with sketchy mushrooms. Yep, those same blue mushrooms that look like they came from a Mario game, but instead of making you grow, they make you obey. For real. At first, the villagers react like someone just told them the bread had gluten, confused and chuckling nervously. Some even defend the mushrooms, saying they're medicinal. But Hasuda's not here to play. He instantly drops the real bomb. The mushroom's main ingredient is human. And just to drive it home, he pulls out a skull like someone unveiling a bottle of fine wine at a fancy dinner. The crowd is in shock, and now there's a literal skull centerpiece on the party table. Magna tries to brush off the accusation, laughing it off and thanking them for such an entertaining theory. But Hasuda expected that. So he pulls out a phone and plays an audio recording, Thomas's voice confirming everything. Magna's been brainwashing the entire village. The message hits so hard even Marie freezes, recognizing the voice instantly. The audio keeps playing, Thomas explaining how his former comrades were all victims of Magna's plan. First he got them hooked on the mushrooms, then drained them completely, and finally ended them without mercy, just to use them as fertilizer or some secret ingredient. And as if that wasn't dark enough, Oni Yagi announces they've got even more evidence. Because if you're going to morally obliterate a villain in front of his whole fan club, you better come with receipts and traumatized witnesses. Necklaces, backpacks, and bags start being laid out, each item revealing the truth Magna tried to hide. One by one, villagers recognize belongings from their missing loved ones. That backpack was Dad's. That necklace, the one a man gave his wife. The tension skyrockets like someone just dumped gasoline on a bonfire, and the spark is already lit. The horror hits them all at once. Magna had been hiding the bodies of the missing, or at least what was left of them. Faces go pale, voices start to tremble, and the question drops fast. Are they unsubscribed from life? Magna, meanwhile, just lets out a sigh, like someone who knows the show's over. And yeah, curtains closed. The crowd surrounds him, demanding answers, but Magna's not in the mood for speeches. Instead, he starts charging a magic circle with a defeated look. Says this is all the fault of meddlers, that they ruined his plan, that he was so close. With a magical spark, the ground lights up and he mutters, "Again!" And again means it's reset time. Clean slate, hard reboot, and run, because the beasties are loose. He summons a cage, and out come a couple of white monsters that look like they haven't had dinner in days. Claws, fangs, and a roar that says, "Chaos incoming." People scream, run, and even the ones about to yell at him just nope right out. Meanwhile, Hasuda just says the guy had this all planned. Magna plays innocent, and with a cynical grin tells them they'll have to take responsibility too. And he says it while summoning his pride and joy. A giant orc, ripped like a gym ad, with a face that says he's ready to hand out slaps. The two small-timers don't know whether to run or play dead, but only manage to mumble, "He's bigger than we thought." And yeah, the orc's not just big, he's got clear orders. Squash them. With a jump that shakes the ground, the beast slams down hard. But before it can move, a cold voice cuts in with a sharp "Hey." It's Oni Yagi, back in his reptilian form, stopping the attack with one hand. Hasuda asks if he knows what he's doing. The lizard replies like a pro, "I've got the big guy." His partner nods without fear, knowing his guys got this covered. Yagi doesn't waste time. He launches the orc straight into a house, leaving it embedded like unwanted holiday decor. Then taunts him from a distance, calling out his slow reflexes like it's a chill afternoon picnic. In the middle of this circus, Magna eyes Yagi with interest and makes Hasuda a sketchy offer. Hand over the kid. Hasuda, obviously, shuts him down with smooth diplomacy. But Magna doesn't give up and throws out another deal. If he kills him, can he keep him? As he drops that gem of a line, his wolves charge at Hasuda ready to rip him apart. But Hasuda doesn't flinch an inch. With a simple sit, the beasts obey like they're in obedience school. He lights a cigarette with complete chill and says he's about to give them a crash course in manners. Right after, Hasuda faces him with a question. What magic trick's he gonna pull next? And in response, Magna drops a sparkling red powder that blankets the area like a smoke grenade. The thick cloud has everyone coughing and gasping. Confusion spreads fast as no one knows what's going on. In the choking fog, Mari stumbles, calling out for help, begging her husband Thomas to save them. Forgetting that Thomas already unsubscribed from life. Magna appears at her side and, with a soft voice, says he's finally found her. She, filled with fear and bitterness, calls him Master Magna and tells him to back off. But he grabs her shoulder, not letting go, and makes a deeply disturbing promise. Now that her husband's out of the picture, they can finally live together forever. He orders her to eliminate the outsiders. Mari, shaking and confused, approaches Hasuda like she's seeking comfort, but suddenly falls onto him. Hasuda catches her to keep her from getting hurt, but that's when he feels cold steel straight in his chest. The stab is dead on. Mari, with a blank look, says her loyalty lies only with Master Magna. Mari, her eyes cold and her voice robotic, declares total loyalty to Lord Magna, and says there's only one path for outsiders: death. Hasuda, bleeding and swaying, hears her words with a mix of pain and acceptance, like he's resigned to it. His cigarette drops to the ground as the blood loss makes him collapse. Magna, very pleased, praises Mari like a well-trained pet. Hasuda, still conscious, calls him a bastard, but Magna, wearing his signature toxic salesman smile, explains that the smoke was laced with magic mushroom-type hallucinogens. Says he prefers not to use it, but hey, if it's for the village's good. Oh well. Then he waves goodbye like he just closed a deal, as Hasuda fully blacks out. Blondie decides to kill time while his other enemies are still fighting. He looks at Hasuda's body and says he'll take it. Yagi even suggests modifying him genetically, making a few upgrades, and turning him into a mutant Fight Club champ. With total casualness, he tells Mari to take Hasuda apart like he's asking her to do the dishes. But just as she leans in to obey, Hasuda grabs her wrist and drops an emotional nuke. He knows she's Mari, and he's got a message from her husband, Thomas. Thomas asked him to help free her, and it finally shatters her trance, emotionally and physically. Mari's mind breaks like glass under pressure. Memories, feelings, and lost humanity start flooding back through the cracks in her brainwashing. She touches her head, disoriented, and wakes up from the brain fog like someone escaping a bad dream. She's back. Mari looks at the knife in Hasuda's chest with horror and apologizes for what she did. But Hasuda, with a kind smile, tells her it's fine. Even with a knife in his chest, his body's special. He literally pulls the blade out and starts healing like a silver-haired Wolverine uncle. Mari, totally freaked out, can only ask who the hell he even is. Hasuda humbly replies, he's nobody special, just a simple recovery agent. The villagers, full cult mode activated, surround him like they're ready to go full angry mob. But Mari tries to snap them out of it, begging them to wake up and see the truth. One villager charges at her with a knife, and she closes her eyes, ready to be stabbed. But Hasuda stops the attack like a true gentleman, with a business card. Because if you're gonna disarm a brainwashed fanboy, you better do it with style. He tells Mari to hide, promises he won't let anything happen to her, and mentions it's part of the promise he made to Thomas. Then he activates a weird-looking orange power, warning that what he's about to do might be rough, but necessary. His magic hits the villagers, who suddenly get yellow eyes and drop to their knees like it's Sunday service. He orders them to sleep until morning. Clean. Effective. No trauma. Right then, Magna shows up, confused by the chaos, and Hasuda greets him with the subtlety of a baseball bat. You saved me the trouble of finding you. Magna's baffled, can't understand how this guy's still breathing, but Hasuda leaves him even more rattled by calling him by his real past life name, Takechiatu. He drops mental bomb after bomb, telling him to quit pretending. This should all feel very familiar. Magna tries to hold it together, but flashbacks don't care about your dignity. We see that, in his past life, Takechi was basically one of those spiritual influencers who promise miracles in exchange for cash. He gave speeches in packed halls, begged for donations to save loved ones, and collected more power, money, and worship with every passing day. Until one of his followers snapped, blamed him for ruining their life, and came at him with a knife. Back to the present, where Takechi, now Magna, starts to crumble. He screams at Hasuda to shut up, says everything was perfect, that he's the king of this happy, flawless nation. Hasuda challenges him, king of what? While the villagers stay kneeling, ignoring him completely. Magna, in full meltdown, slaps one and orders them to kill Hasuda. But nope, no one moves. His mushroom kingdom is crashing hard. With wild eyes, Magna spots Mari and rushes toward her like she's the last floaty on the Titanic. He grabs her tightly, almost begging her not to leave, saying she's the only one who's always been on his side. But Mari, terrified, screams for help and calls for the recovery agent. And that's the final crack in this wannabe king's sanity. He calls her a traitor, yells that after everything he did for her, this is how she repays him. Says his word is law, that she's just a nobody who has no right to defy him, and starts charging a spell while demanding she kneel. Before he can launch it, Hasuda swoops in and kicks him straight into some barrels. With a mix of disappointment and superiority, he tells him his mask finally fell off. Magna, beat to hell but still clinging to his delusions, whines that if Hasuda hadn't shown up, he could have kept being king forever. But Hasuda shuts him down with a line that stings worse than the kick. You never had what it takes to be above anyone. Desperate, Magna begs him to stop. But Hasuda's already activating a golden spell, calm as ever, and as the magical energy surrounds him, he makes one thing very clear. In the end, it really is that simple. Hasuda wraps things up like he just closed a catalog deal. With his usual chill vibe, he finishes collecting Magna's power. The energy gets sealed in a glowing green orb, which he stores like a pro while casually dropping a thanks for doing business. Deal closed. Client obliterated. Magna, no longer wearing his mask of superiority, collapses into his true form, a fragile, confused old man. Mari stares at him, shocked, like she can't process that this was the same guy who had her under control. The old man, still trying to play his tricks, goes, "Mari, I'm sorry about earlier. I'm not angry anymore. Come here." But Mari's not biting. She demands to see Thomas right now, as proof that he means it. Magna forces a smile and says that's an easy request, as long as she promises to trust only him. That's when Hasuda, cigarette in hand and no time for liars, shuts him down with a gut punch of a line. "You seriously don't know when to quit?" Hasuda reveals the truth Magna was trying to bury, that he locked Thomas up and used him as a living mushroom farm before ending his life. Magna starts sweating like a senator mid-scandal, trying to deny everything, but Mari doesn't believe a word. She slaps him with all her built-up rage, knocking him to the floor. Overwhelmed with grief and fury, Mari jumps on him, grabs his neck, and demands he bring Thomas back. As she strangles him, she screams that it's all his fault. Magna's body starts shaking, his eyes go white, and he starts drooling from the shock. Hasuda steps in, pulls her off, and firmly says that's enough. She fights back, shoving him, but he insists. He gets her pain, but she can't kill him, because Magna's value tanks if he dies. Strictly business. Right then, Yagi, the dragon bodyguard, shows up with a herd of sheep. He rushes in yelling, worried for Hasuda, but Hasuda tells him everything's handled, job's done. Yagi, grinning, replies that he also finished his part. He lifts Magna's defeated body like a sack of rice and throws it over his shoulder. Both prepare to leave. Mari, desperate, yells for them to wait. But Hasuda, without turning around, tells her not to worry, that the punishment Magna's about to get is so brutal he'll wish he were dead. "So go ahead and feel satisfied," he says coldly. Mari breaks inside. She says she has nothing left, no idea how to keep going. Hasuda, gently petting a sheep, just replies, "Who knows? We're just outsiders. There's nothing we can do for you." Mari drops to her knees, defeated. But then, one of the sheep walks up to her with something in its mouth. A ring. It's Thomas's ring. There's also a letter. She opens it with trembling hands and starts reading. "Mari, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer in this world. I'm sorry for leaving you behind. I know the village must be gone, but even so, don't give up hope." As the letter goes on, Mari breaks into tears. Thomas's words beg her to keep living, to move forward, to know that he's always thinking of her. We see flashbacks of their life together, their wedding, happy moments, and a spiritual hug from Thomas beyond the grave. She kneels before the sheep and, through tears, whispers that she'll think of him forever too. In the distance, Hasuda and Yagi walk away while Mari, hugging the sheep, thanks them with a soft, "Thank you, collection agent." The scene cuts sharply. Magna wakes up lying in the woods, completely disoriented. He wonders what's going on, where he is, and figures he just needs to find another village to manipulate. He thinks that even without his ability, he can still charm people. But the moment he takes a step, a chain tied to his ankle yanks him flat on his face. When he looks up, he sees a man completely covered in mushrooms, eyes blank. Clearly not in a normal state. Hasuda appears with a polite smile and explains that this guy is a specialized crop of gourmet mushrooms, the kind that feed on human blood. Magna, horrified, tries to escape. Hasuda tells him they're on a farm that grows these mushrooms using live humans as planters. But not just any humans, only criminals. Magna tries to talk his way out of it. Says they already took his powers, he's worthless, they should let him go. But Hasuda looks at him like a teacher catching a kid lying about homework. He replies with biting sarcasm, "Getting forgetful already, Lord Magna?" and drops the final sentence. From now on, he'll be a living flower pot, a mushroom planter, just like he always loved. Then Truck-kun rolls in, carrying a crate full of tiny goblins in yellow hard hats. All very official. The little workers hop down, line up, and start inoculating Magna with mushrooms like creepy graveyard gardeners. He starts sweating bullets, begging for mercy, but Hasuda, with a twisted smile, throws out one last line. "Isn't this the peaceful life you always wanted? I'm happy for you." Magna can barely beg as his body begins to twitch. Spores burst from his belly, mushrooms erupt from his skin, and he lets out a guttural scream while roots spread through his insides. After leaving Magna with a fate more fungal than human, the story takes a hard shift in tone. We're now in the bar district of the Black Dragon Fortress, a cozy place lit by warm lanterns and neon signs. There we see Hasuda, Yagi, and the secretary enjoying a well-earned night out. They're celebrating, chugging beer, devouring food, and laughing like they didn't just turn someone into a human planter earlier. They literally toast to the success of the job, clinking their mugs like it's party time. Yagi jokes with a mouthful of food, the secretary chuckles quietly but happy, and Hasuda keeps his usual smile while poking at some sushi. The night rolls on, and the next day hits hard. Hasuda wakes up slumped on a couch, a hangover tattooed on his face. He sits up slowly, wondering what time it is, what happened after the drinking, and why his skull feels like a drum. He stumbles to the bathroom, splashes water on his face, and tries to gather his thoughts. But his recovery gets cut short by a new character's arrival. A tall, handsome, glowing dude with silver hair, golden eyes, and a noble aura. The guy asks straight up if he's Mr. Hasuda. Hasuda, still half zombie, answers yes, but begs him to stop shining so much, because the light is literally killing him. That's how brutal the hangover is. The guy stands there serious, clearly uncomfortable with the comment, but before things get weirder, the secretary walks in. She reminds Hasuda that this man had a scheduled appointment, and that she mentioned it last night. Hasuda tries to remember, but all he can recall is Sake and Yagi's dumb laugh. He figures he forgot because of the booze and asks her to bring him some tea while he gets ready. Now suited up and a little less dead inside, Hasuda introduces himself properly to the new client, apologizing for the wait. The guy seems polite, but kind of unsure. He quietly asks the secretary if that man is actually in any condition to work. She answers like it's nothing, saying he's just a little out of it from last night's party. The client finally introduces himself. His name is Sissel, and he says he needs a skill retrieval done urgently. Hasuda settles into the couch, intrigued, and asks him to explain what's going on exactly. Sissel begins to explain that, as the god of his world, he recently welcomed a reincarnated soul. It was a woman from another world, chosen to be a kind of savior, a saint. At first, everything seemed fine, but then things spiraled out of control. It all turned into a catastrophe. The scene cuts to an apocalyptic wasteland. The same woman now appears as a massive, deformed creature with black skin, glowing red eyes, and violent energy. The destruction is so intense that Hasuda wonders if it was caused by a bomb or some kind of WMD. Sissel clarifies it wasn't an explosion. It was the reincarnated woman herself who wiped out his world. In the photo he shows, there's a field full of fallen warriors, and in the middle of that grim landscape, the monstrous creature still stands, seething with rage. The secretary hands Hasuda the woman's file, her Earth life record. The document reveals her name, Shirakawa Megumi. Turns out she was a single mom with twins and died in a car accident. Nothing in her background suggests any violent behavior. Hasuda looks at her photo. She seems serious, but kind. As he scans the file, Hasuda reflects in silence. No shady past, no crimes, no red flags. He finally breaks the silence and asks Sissel how someone like her ended up becoming that monster. Sissel, still frustrated and hurt, says that's exactly what he wants to understand. He insists he believes she was good, that he trusted her, and now feels like he was betrayed in the worst way. Hasuda, now fully recovered, throws the direct question. Why'd you bring her in as a reincarnated soul in the first place? He's not accusing, just trying to get the logic. Sissel, not dodging the question, starts explaining how his world works. He says that for centuries, humans and demons have been in constant conflict. Even though they were always at war or in disagreement, that chaos maintained a kind of balance. While he explains, images show both sides, humans in armor with spears, demons with wings, horns, and fangs. It was your classic clash. No good guys, no bad guys. Just two forces locked in eternal battle. But then, everything changed. Instead of sticking to that chaotic balance, there was a slaughter. A total massacre. The demons, without warning, began wiping out humans without mercy. And that was the breaking point. Suddenly, demons started being born way stronger than normal. The new demon generations weren't just aggressive, they were unhinged. They shouted about exterminating all humans, laughing as bodies piled up like garbage. The balance collapsed in a matter of days. There was no way to fight back. So, in their desperation, humans did what any dying civilization would do: pray. They begged the heavens for salvation, someone who could undo the annihilation, someone to bring their people back. And just like that, as if the divine suggestion box had been checked, a saint appeared. A radiant woman, glowing with light and a serene smile, descended from the sky before a desperate crowd. But that hope didn't last. Sissel sighs as he tells it all, still shining like an emotional disco ball. Hasuda, who now gets the full picture, doesn't overthink it. He tells him he'll take the case, that the retrieval will be handled by his team, and the fee will be the usual. Sissel agrees, and the deal is sealed. Hasuda stands up, says they'll contact him once the job's done, and asks his secretary, Itakura, to show the god out. Before leaving, Sissel thanks them and mentions that, as gods, they're bound to a single world, so they need middlemen like the retrieval agency to fix disasters. He says it with a smile that's a little too crooked. There's something in his eyes that feels off, like he's hiding something. Hasuda notices it, but just smiles back diplomatically. He looks forward to working with him. The scene jumps now to Sissel's world, where the battlefield looks like a graveyard with no tombstones. Several knights on horseback charge at the creature that was once the saint. Fear is clear in their eyes, but one of them takes the lead and shouts that they must push forward, no fear. The soldiers follow bravely, charging en masse toward the enemy. But that courage doesn't last. The creature, a black monstrosity with red eyes and a mouth full of fangs, starts gathering energy in its throat. With a roar, it fires a devastating blast that wipes out all the knights in one hit. The field erupts in fire and smoke, soldiers scattered, burned, and covered in ash. Some try to crawl out from the rubble and smoking bodies, injured, dazed, not even sure what hit them. Out of the chaos, Hasuda appears, walking like nothing happened, calm but serious. He surveys the carnage and drops one of his classic lines. "This is awful." Then, staring at the roaring creature in the distance, he adds, "No matter how I look, I don't see a saint here." One of the knights, shocked to see anyone still alive and strolling casually, asks what squad he's with. Hasuda smiles and says he's just happy to finally talk to someone still breathing. He introduces himself as part of the retrieval agency and asks the knight to tell him everything he knows about what happened to the saint. The knight, exhausted, face smeared with blood and dust, starts explaining. He says they don't know exactly what went wrong. One day, the saint just came down from the heavens. At that moment, all the humans regained hope. She led the soldiers with strength and charisma, waving a flag high. She became a symbol of change. But that glorious moment ended in a flash. Without warning, the saint changed. Her body, her presence, everything transformed. She turned into a terrifying witch, a being who recognized no allies or enemies. Her magic became wild, chaotic, and instead of protecting humans, she started destroying everything without distinction. The once kind face that brought hope now grins like a bloodthirsty beast. From the sky, she casts a spell that unleashes a firestorm, burning down demons and humans alike. As the battlefield burned and the surviving knights struggled to make sense of what had gone wrong, Hasuda tried to get answers. He asked one of the knights why the saint was destroying everything, but the man could only stammer that he didn't know. Another chimed in, saying she was a good person, that they couldn't believe she'd do this. The confusion and fear were as massive as the creature now wrecking everything in sight. Hasuda, thankful for the info, left without drama. The knights shouted at him to wait, said he was crazy, that walking up to that thing was suicide. But he just told them not to worry. Far from them now, he pulled out his phone and called his secretary, Itakura. He asked her to let Bayaki know he'd be late, so she wouldn't freak out. Like he wasn't about to face a mutated goddess or anything. Then, without hesitation, he stood before the creature. And in an instant, without anyone noticing, he was already standing right on her chest. The creature barely reacted before he was already there, calm like someone unbothered by death or nightmare clients. He greeted her politely. "Nice to meet you, Shirakawa Megumi." She froze, stunned. Not by the words, but because she didn't even see him move. When did he get there? Hasuda introduced himself as the head of the retrieval agency and asked if she had a moment to talk. Instead of responding nicely, the creature growled, "My name. You know it? You're just like that bastard." As she spoke, she started charging energy in her mouth to fire again. Hasuda reacted. A blast shot out, but he dodged it effortlessly and landed softly on the ground. In his usual tone, he asked who she meant by that bastard. He was trying to start a conversation, but the creature clearly wasn't in the mood for soul-searching. The beast glared down at him, confused he was still alive. She yelled at him to get lost and fired another blast. Another explosion shook the field. In the thick smoke, a voice came through. "I'm sorry." When the smoke cleared, there was Hasuda, walking out like he just left a boring meeting. He dusted himself off, smoking as always, and calmly told her that attacks like that don't work on him. Meanwhile, a few surviving knights took the chance to run for their lives. Hasuda watched them go, and he noticed something strange. The creature wasn't attacking them. That got him thinking. Maybe the saint-turned monster only reacts to people who approach with hostile intent. Determined to get answers, he spoke to her again. "Hey, Miss Saint, so who were you talking about?" But the creature only shouted back a furious, "Shut up," and unleashed a non-stop barrage of attacks. Hasuda dodged them easily, almost lazily. He started wondering if the saint had lost her hearing, because she clearly wasn't listening. But she kept going with her classic, "Shut up" combo while firing more and more beams. Just then, 3 demons appeared from behind the creature. They saw her focused on Hasuda and yelled, "She's wide open! Die!" and launched a sneak attack straight for her back. Hasuda didn't even flinch at the demons. He just raised his hand, chill as ever, and dropped a fall. Instantly, a massive blue lightning bolt crashed from the sky and split the ground like butter. The demons barely had time to go, "Huh," before the thunderbolt sent them flying. Then, as the ground sizzled and the air sparked, Hasuda muttered in annoyance that he was in the middle of a conversation and asked not to be interrupted. Basically hit them with a "grown-ups are talking" warning. He turned again to the giant creature in front of him, the so-called saint, and spoke in a calm tone, never raising his voice or showing fear. He told her he didn't want to fight, reminded her that, in her past life, she was a good person. The kind they don't even make anymore. As he said it, he couldn't help thinking about the freaks he usually deals with. Your typical reincarnated psychos with that "I kick puppies for fun" look. The saint didn't respond, but her silence spoke volumes. She was tense, filled with dark energy, and could only whisper a few, "Shut up, shut up," like Hasuda's words were rattling something inside her. He kept going, told her she was a kind mother. A real one. And that, to reach this level of violence, something awful must have happened. Something that shattered everything she was. She snapped, screamed that she doesn't believe in anyone anymore, that she'll never trust again, that she's done. Then she hurled her massive claw at him, wrapped in purple energy. Hasuda didn't budge. With the same tone you'd use to explain a cake recipe, he said, "I see. So this is about your kids, isn't it?" The moment he said that, the claw froze inches from his face. The saint went completely still. Her red eyes went wide. Her breathing stopped. All she could whisper was, "My babies." Hasuda, realizing he'd hit the mark, kept talking in that same calm tone. Told her he'd noticed she only attacks those who come at her, not the innocent. Meaning, she's not out of control. She's protecting something. The saint remained frozen. Her expression shifted from rage to confusion. And then, slowly, she began to open up her body, like undoing part of herself, revealing what she'd been hiding inside. From between the fibers of her form, two small red-skinned demons appeared, with curled horns and trembling eyes. They were huddled together, but when they saw Hasuda, one of them spoke up and told him not to hurt their mom. Not to harass her. "Our mom's not bad, leave her alone," is basically what they said. Hasuda stood frozen. His eyes widened, not out of shock, but because he'd just confirmed something he read earlier. He murmured softly, like thinking out loud, "Mom?" And then he remembered. The file said Shirakawa Megumi was a single mother, with twins. Hasuda turned back to the giant creature, who now looked way less like a threat and way more like a mother pushed past her limit. He scratched his head like he had no clue what to do, and mumbled in a more relaxed tone, "What a mess!" Hasuda stared at the demon twins, still not fully believing those little creatures were the saint's children. But the monstrous woman confirmed it in a pretty direct way. She conjured a magical orb and projected it to show him her memories. Hasuda watched closely, realizing this wasn't an attack. It was a full memory, something real she had lived through. The vision began with a woman on her knees, totally disoriented, having no idea what's happening. She looked around, confused, repeating that she was just heading home and doesn't know how she got to this weird place. You could see the fear in her face. There were no visual clues about where she was, until a glowing figure appeared. It was the god Sissel, shining like always, with that kind smile that somehow never feels quite right. He dropped the bomb on her with zero sugarcoating, told her she died crossing the street on a red light. Just like that. She freaked out, denied it in full panic, said it couldn't be true, that her kids, Kai and Sora, were waiting for her at home. But Sissel kept smiling that soft smile that was starting to look sketchy, and told her kids were probably really worried about her. Then, in a move that had nothing to do with holy vibes, he lifted her chin with his hand, all seductive, and whispered, "I can send you back to your world." The woman was stunned, hope lighting up her face instantly, and asked if he really meant it. He said yes, he was a god and could do it. But of course, there were conditions. Then he dropped the offer like it was no big deal. If she wanted to see her children again, she had to become humanity's savior. Told her she'd be a saint, a chosen one, and would need to eliminate the most dangerous demons, known as calamity demons. What was sketchy was that, when he mentioned defeating them, his face changed. That fake smile twisted into something cruel. He didn't mean scare them off. He meant full-on annihilation. Even so, the woman didn't hesitate. Said she'd do it. That she'd do anything if it meant seeing her children again. Sissel granted her the power, and the contract was sealed. The memory continued. Now she was riding a white horse, leading an army of human knights. They all cheered for her, called her the saint, their faces full of faith and hope. She didn't say a word, but clearly looked nervous, her expression tense. Still, she marched forward with the group. Suddenly, a demon showed up looking like he escaped from some low-budget villain convention. He bounced around with his huge tongue out, mocking the humans, called them idiots for coming back to the battlefield and promised to burn them to ash. His hand lit up with purple flames and he launched the attack. The saint reacted on instinct, shielding her face, and that's when her new power kicked in. A golden beam burst from her body and pierced the demon straight through, blasting a hole in his chest. basically turned him into a demon donut. The guy disintegrated into ashes while she stared at her hands in shock. She couldn't believe what she'd just done. Her face was pure panic, like she was holding a weapon she should have never touched. Around her, the soldiers celebrated like she was a movie superhero. They shouted that the saint had triumphed, that now they stood a chance against the demons. She swallowed the fear, clenched her fists, and tried to convince herself, no time for fear. She had to end this fast and get back to her kids. She wasn't fighting for humanity anymore. She was fighting to go home. But life, or the afterlife in this case, had other plans. In an instant, the whole vibe changed. A bunch of human soldiers started dropping like flies. Some were ripped apart so violently that blood splashed everywhere, staining the saint's face. She froze in terror. One of the surviving soldiers managed to warn her. The calamity demons had arrived. And sure enough, two shadowy figures showed up. Unlike the other demons, these were different. They wore white masks with creepy expressions, and their bodies were cloaked in pure darkness. Their presence was overwhelming. Just showing up changed the entire tone of the war. The soldier begged her to run, said those two weren't regular enemies, that fighting them was practically suicide. The saint held the soldier's hand, but looked him dead in the eye and said no. She wasn't going to run. She was going to take down the calamity demons with her own hands. She believed if she beat them, she might be able to return to her kids. So without wasting another second, she charged forward. A horde of demons rushed at her with fury, and right in the middle stood the two calamity demons, towering and silent. She gathered power in her palm and launched her golden attack, fierce and focused. But just before it hit, the demons countered with their own magic, and the forces collided in midair, canceling each other out in a violent blast. The explosion shook the battlefield. The saint's face didn't show fear, just frustration. The demons studied her more closely and confirmed it. Yes, she was the saint. And without hesitation, they told her they'd eliminate her. But she didn't back down. She thought about the one thing keeping her going. She had to win, had to survive, just to be able to hug her twins again. With that thought burning in her mind, she fired her light beam once more. This time, the attack broke through the demons' defense and blasted them backwards. The impact cracked their masks bit by bit, until part of their faces became visible. The saint stares at them closely and freezes. Something in their faces feels way too familiar. Impossible, she thinks. But even so, she says her children's names out loud, Kai and Sora. And to her surprise, the demons stop. They've heard those names before too. They look at each other, confused, and one of them asks, "Mom?" She steps back, stunned. How can they look so much like them? And why did they react to her children's names like that? Suddenly, she hears Sissel's voice speaking from some corner of her mind. He demands that she act. He yells that it's her duty to eliminate them now that they're vulnerable. But she, frozen, starts to understand what's really happening. Could it be? These demons are her children? Chaos surrounds her. The human soldiers scream that this is the perfect chance to destroy the calamity demons. At the same time, the demons spot her and order to kill her. Both sides want her to be executioner and victim at once. The psychological pressure is brutal. She starts trembling, hyperventilating. She begs them to stop, that she can't take it anymore. Her emotions explode, and she screams so hard that a burst of golden energy erupts from her body. That explosion changes everything. It's the exact moment she stops being human. Her body transforms, and the saint becomes the monster that now terrifies the entire city. But even in that grotesque and terrifying form, she holds the two demons, who we now understand are her children, and hugs them gently. She declares she will protect them, that she won't kill them, even if God himself comes down and demands it. Outside the memory, Hasuda watches everything carefully. The memory orb fades, and he's left in silence, processing all the truth he just witnessed. He now understands who that creature really is, and why she was protecting the two demon kids so fiercely. He no longer sees a threat, but a desperate mother. She, in her monstrous form, speaks to Hasuda in a more human tone. She asks him to at least save the children. That it doesn't matter what happens to her, but her kids shouldn't suffer. And as she says it, her grotesque body starts to crack like glass, and between the fragments we see the real woman inside, crying. The mother, the person who just wanted to go home. The two children beg too. They tell Hasuda they were tricked by that god, and now they have no one. They plead with him to help them. But Hasuda, with his usual serious face, responds with total honesty. Unfortunately, he's just a retrieval agent. Hasuda, his face completely serious, activates the retrieval spell while saying he simply uses his powers to collect things, just like that god asked. In front of him, the kids and their mother freeze. Not from the spell's power, but from fear. The mother doesn't fight, she just watches in horror, realizing this is the end. The god Isel, somewhere watching it all, shows a twisted and satisfied smile, like this was exactly what he wanted all along. Hasuda is just doing his job. The next day, the vibe is different. Light comes through the window of Hasuda's office, where he sits at his desk, hand on his head and a tired look on his face. He mumbles that it hurts, and his assistant, wearing the usual not this again face, asks if he's hungover again. But he says no, that things just got a little out of hand this time. Even so, he asks if there's more work waiting. She doesn't reply. She just offers him a cup of tea, and he, like it's nothing, thanks her. The peace doesn't last. Aniagi, visibly upset, bursts into the office yelling the woman's name, Shirakawa Megumi. He plants himself in front of Hasuda, eyes full of rage, and throws out the question with no sugarcoating. Why did you retrieve her? Didn't you see she wasn't a bad person? Hasuda barely looks up, while Aniagi unloads everything he'd been holding in. He reminds him that this woman was a single mother, worked multiple jobs, did everything to raise her twins. That all she wanted was to see them again. While he speaks, we see an image of Megumi hugging her children. A moment of tenderness and humanity that cuts deep in contrast with the coldness of what just happened. Aniagi insists, she just wanted to see her kids. But Hasuda, unmoved, responds coldly. He says that stuff, feelings, don't matter in their line of work. That they're not here to judge if someone's good or bad. They just follow orders. Period. Tension rises. Aniagi tries to reply, but Hasuda cuts him off without raising his voice, making it clear that this is a retrieval agency. That their job isn't to save people or show compassion. And that if he's got doubts, he better keep them to himself, because they don't need people with second thoughts around here. Aniagi doesn't answer. He just lowers his gaze, defeated. What just happened hit him harder than he expected. In a later scene, we see Hasuda meeting again with the god Isel. The mood shifts again. Isel greets him with his usual smile, the one that seems friendly but hides something shady. He says the job went perfectly, just as he expected. That everything turned out great. Hasuda responds neutrally, saying it was an interesting assignment. He doesn't seem angry or pleased. He just moves on. Then the god starts talking more openly, showing his true personality without filters. He casually says, with a smile growing darker, that being a god is boring as hell. That's why, for fun, he likes to reincarnate humans into this world. Not to help them, but to create a killing show. His personal pastime. Says it's the best way to kill time, especially when the humans have deep emotional bonds. This god enjoys watching people despair, break down, betray each other. He says it with a sadistic grin. Admits that's what he loves most, watching people lose everything. But then his tone shifts a bit. He sighs, like he's actually disappointed, and says that this show, which was perfect for him, got ruined by that woman. That she ruined everything by refusing to kill her own children. Aniagi clenches his fists as he listens to the god casually brag about his horrors like he's reading off a recipe. Next to him, Itakura stays silent, clearly uncomfortable. The god Isel keeps chatting with Hasuda, all smiles, saying that his company is truly efficient at solving problems for money, and that's why he values them so much. Hasuda, ever the pro, just says they do the best they can. But the god keeps going, saying that the previous failure, referring to the saint, was already taken care of thanks to them, and that next time he'll make sure to create a show that's even crueler and more refined. That's when Aniagi finally snaps. He explodes with rage and yells, "You bastard! with trembling fists, ready to knock his face in. But Itakura stops him with just a glance, and even though it's hard, he holds back. Hasuda apologizes to the client, saying his employees still need a bit more training. The god, smug as ever, says it's no big deal and asks what the next step is. Hasuda hands him an object. It's the saint's collected ability. He gives it to him like he's handing over a bag of cookies, with a smile to match. Right then, his phone rings. He picks up immediately. It's Truck-kun, the most efficient delivery guy in the multiverse. Hasuda asks if the delivery was made, and Truck-kun confirms. Hasuda hangs up and informs God Issel that the saint's body was already sent to a trading company. Oniagi, already on edge, now goes full boil. He yells at Hasuda that this is insane, asks how he could go that far. But the boss completely ignores him, keeping his business smile and continuing the convo like they're talking about shipping logistics. Issel, totally chill, asks what happened to the twins. Were they delivered too? That's the last straw. Oniagi throws a punch straight at the god. Issel doesn't even flinch, barely glances like a fly's coming at him. But just before it hits, Hasuda stops the attack with a single word, Oniagi. Arms crossed, serious look. Just that is enough to freeze his subordinate in place. Oniagi lowers his fist, grits his teeth, and says he needs to get some air. He slams the door and storms out. As soon as he walks out, he runs into a group of people in black suits entering the office. While Issel and Hasuda keep discussing payment, the mood shifts instantly. The newcomers introduce themselves. You must be the god in charge, Issel. We're from the Genesis Management Bureau Inspection Department, also known as Marsa. Issel, surprised, stands up and asks what Marsa is doing there. Oniagi repeats the name under his breath, not quite getting it. Itakura calmly explains. Marsa is the organization that monitors gods. They step in when a god acts maliciously, illegally, or fraudulently. In other words, they're the cosmic cops who slap leashes on out-of-control deities. Oniagi listens in silence, trying to process what just happened. Hasuda, meanwhile, turns to the squad leader and drops a dry remark. You're late. The inspector replies they're here to inform that God Issel has committed a serious violation of the code. Issel puts on a fake confused face and asks what they're talking about. Says his contracts with the retrieval agency are private, and they have no authority over that. But the agents aren't fooled. They tell him he reincarnated a human he wasn't supposed to, that he tampered with her fate just for fun, and that this isn't the first time. He's done it plenty of times before, causing deaths and chaos for kicks. Issel tries to weasel out of it, laughs nervously and asks if they've got proof. He demands evidence, practically mocking them. The lead agent pulls out his phone and says yes. He shows him a photo and tells him he'll definitely recognize the people in it. In the image, we see Megumi, the mother, being looked after by Marsa agents. She's safe. And in the background, playing without a care, are her twin boys. Right next to them is Truck-kun, watching over them like their official babysitter. Sissel stares at the screen with a mix of confusion and dread. His voice shakes as he says it doesn't make sense, that they were supposed to be out of the game. But Hasuda, with his usual cynical calm, just smiles faintly. That smile alone is enough for the god to realize everything. He turns, furious, and yells at him directly, screaming that he was in on it from the start, that he's trash, that he's sabotaged everything. Hasuda doesn't even blink. In fact, he almost looks amused. He answers with the ease of someone who already won, saying that trash is actually a pretty cool word. Then he explains he simply acted in his own best interest, that he'll always take the path with the best long-term return. He's not even pretending to hide his true intentions anymore. Oniagi, who's been processing this whole mess, finally sees the full picture. He accepts it with a resigned smile and tells the boss a simple, "President." Like everything suddenly makes sense. Hasuda turns to the leader of Marsa's elite squad and says they took so long he had no choice but to keep that idiot entertained, obviously referring to Sissel. The guy in the suit doesn't respond with drama or apologies, just says they had paperwork to deal with. That's it. Like a late Amazon delivery. Right then, the Marsa agents grab Sissel, one on each arm. The god, who thought he was untouchable 2 minutes ago, panics completely. He starts yelling that his father runs the ritual department, that he has divine authority, that he can fire them all or make them disappear if they mess with him. He's totally desperate, like a spoiled kid having his favorite toy taken away. But the door opens, and someone else walks in. A firm voice tells him that, unfortunately, not even Daddy can save him this time. Everyone in the room straightens up instantly. Oniyagi and Itakura, from the corner, wonder who that guy is. When they get a closer look, they notice he suspiciously resembles Hasuda. It's Minister Yuri, head of the inspection department. A man with a presence that weighs like a mountain. Hasuda watches him with a grin, like they go way back, and Yuri starts talking straight. He declares that the actions of God Sissel cannot be overlooked. That this time, every line was crossed. So, as a special case, it's been decided that he will be stripped of his divine powers. Sissel starts sweating bullets. He refuses to believe it. The agents force him to his knees while he begs, says it must be a mistake, a bad joke. But Yuri places his hand on his head with absolute coldness. He tells him to say goodbye to his godhood, that he played with the world he was supposed to protect, and that's a crime that should never have happened. Then, with a gesture just like Hasuda's, he extracts all of Sissel's divine power like it's just another transaction. While Sissel's body trembles, Yuri announces that the divine power removal is complete. The guy is left dry, powerless, statusless, just a nobody kneeling on the floor. Yuri orders his squad to move out, and they reply with a simple, okay, like they just wrapped up a filing job. While Sissel remains on the ground in disbelief, a hand lands on his shoulder. It's Hasuda, who never misses a chance to twist the knife. He asks Yuri if he's allowed to do whatever he wants with him now. Yuri barely glances at him and says to go ahead. That Sissel's record has been wiped, and even his father gave the green light. Sissel can't believe it. He stares ahead like his whole world is falling apart. But Yuri drops one more bomb, that he's a stain on his father's career. That's why even he handed him over without a second thought. Hasuda mocks Yuri, saying he's heartless. That if he hadn't teamed up with scum like him, the government would have never been able to handle rotten gods like Sissel. But Yuri replies with the same terrifying calm as always, that it was only a matter of time before gods started rotting. Facing Hasuda, he makes it very clear that as long as he's in charge, no divine trash will be left uncleaned. Even if it means working with someone as shady as him. Hasuda just stares back, with that trademark smug grin, and replies with sarcasm that those are very noble words coming from someone like him. But Yuri doesn't flinch. He makes it clear, this isn't a partnership, it's a symbiosis. They'll only work together as long as it's useful. After that, it's every man for himself. Cold, blunt, no fluff. Hasuda shrugs like, whatever, and replies in a relaxed tone that it's all good, as long as it makes life easier. He even throws out an invite, says he's hitting up a new cabaret club tonight, like he's asking a coworker out for drinks. But when he turns around, Yuri is already gone. Left the room the same way he came in, without a word. Hasuda stares at the empty space he left behind and, with a mix of amusement and resignation, says he's just as strict as ever while watching him disappear. Now that Yuri's gone, Hasuda crouches in front of Sissel, who's lying on the floor, defeated, without power, status, or ego. He looks at him like roadkill and drops a line full of venom. So you're not a god anymore. Congrats on getting fired. He reminds him his little tragedy show went so badly, the company lost 3 retrievals. Sissel can barely process it and tells him not to talk nonsense. Just then, Oniyagi shows up behind him in full dragon form, grabs Sissel's head with one hand like he's holding a basketball, and calmly asks if he can just crush it. Sissel's face is pure terror. But Hasuda, instead of encouraging him, tells him to stop, that he doesn't want to dirty the floor, and that killing him before squeezing some value out of him would be a waste. Oniyagi sighs and lets the ex-god drop like a ragdoll, shaking and mumbling curses. As it happens, Hasuda watches with that cold gaze that doesn't need shouting to be scary. The ashes of his cigarette fall inches from Sissel's face, and without looking away, he tells him that if he were him, he wouldn't be so chill. Makes it clear that from now on, he'll do exactly what he says. He calls him trash like he's talking about a broken chair, and points out what really pissed him off wasn't the chaos, but losing the chance to retrieve 3 people. That's a major financial loss. At that moment, a figure appears that totally clashes with the tense vibe. Truck-kun, with his eternal friendly smile and cheerful delivery driver energy. He walks in greeting everyone with his happy voice and asks Hasuda if he's got something good for him. Hasuda welcomes him gladly and thanks him for the earlier favor. Even Aniagi gives him a respectful nod. Truck-kun says that last job caught him off guard, especially having to work with the cops, but he's not complaining. It was a different and even fun experience. Hasuda apologizes for the trouble and thanks him sincerely. Then he explains the reason for this visit is to ask for another favor, this time related to the newest unemployed guy in the room, Sissel. He asks if there's a job for him. Hearing that, Sissel lifts his head in pure fear. He doesn't even try to speak, just nervously watches them decide his fate without him having a say. Truck-kun strokes his chin and says he remembers something that might work. He mentions that at the Black Dragon Underground Arena, a place for illegal fights, they've been low on fighters. So they could offer Sissel as a new contestant, negotiate the price, and make sure his punishment turns a profit. Hasuda agrees without hesitation. Says it sounds perfect, exactly what they needed. While the adults calmly negotiate like they're picking pizza toppings, Sissel stays on the ground, frozen with fear. He can barely process what's happening. He starts mumbling, asking what they mean. Hasuda explains everything with total calm. The underground arena of Black Dragon, a place where anything goes and weapons kill without rules. Weekly battles with bets, and if someone survives and becomes champion, they could become a celebrity inside Black Dragon Castle. But of course, that's the best-case scenario. Because if you're weak, you end up as monster food. Literally. Aniagi backs it up with that warning, and the images speak for themselves. Bloody body parts and human remains tossed in a cell. No metaphors. This is 100% real. Sissel panics, grabs his head and begs desperately. He tries to run like a cockroach when the lights come on, but Hasuda grabs him by the neck with one hand. Looks him dead in the eye and says with a smile that he totally deserves it. That he made plenty of people fight for his amusement. Now it's his turn to fight for himself. He shoves him toward Truck-kun and says he's all his now, make sure he savors every second. Truck-kun takes him without issue and says that once they lock the contract, he'll send the money. Hasuda thanks him, just like that. As Truck-kun drags the ex-god, still screaming and begging his dad to save him, Hasuda and Aniagi wave goodbye laughing, saying they can't wait to see him in his first match. They treat it like they're about to watch an action flick. Time passes and the story shifts to a much calmer setting. Aunt Chiba's shop. Megumi is outside with her twin boys, waiting. Suddenly, Hasuda arrives, and the 3 of them light up when they see him. They shout, "Hasuda-san!" and the kids launch themselves at him like he's their favorite uncle. Hasuda replies calmly and introduces Aniagi as his employee. One of the boys greets him all happy, and the other, with that brutal honesty only kids have, calls him a giant lizard. Aniagi freezes and internally curses not showing up in his human form. Megumi tells Hasuda that the police instructed her to wait there, and he replies that yes, everything's fine. Then they approach a vending machine that looks completely normal. Hasuda asks Aunt Chiba if they can use that door, and she casually gives her blessing. Megumi stares at the machine and asks if that's seriously a door. Hasuda simply presses a button, and the machine opens like it's the entrance to a secret base. Inside, there's a weird elevator straight out of a sci-fi anime. The kids instantly get hyped. They start fighting over who gets in first while Megumi watches with a face full of surprise. Hasuda calmly explains that once the elevator stops, they'll be back in their original world. Megumi thanks him from the bottom of her heart and steps inside with the boys. The twins wave goodbye to Hasuda and Mr. Lizard, and the door slowly closes. We see the elevator activate and travel through what looks like an interdimensional zone. In the blink of an eye, Megumi opens her eyes and is back in her world, in the middle of the night. She looks around in disbelief and realizes it's all real. She hurries home, heart pounding out of her chest. When she opens the door, she yells her sons' names. Kai, Sora. They're there, alive and well, playing video games like nothing happened. They yell "Mom!" and run toward her. Megumi hugs them with tears in her eyes, overwhelmed, telling them she's home. Meanwhile, back with our main guys, Hasuda and Aniagi walk through the alleyways of the district. Hasuda stops, looks at Aniagi seriously, and hits him with, "By the way, you were disappointed, right?" That look comes loaded, like he's making something very clear. Aniagi gets nervous instantly and apologizes without thinking. Says he really regrets his attitude. Hasuda tells Aniagi that at least he's honest, and that's already rare in the line of work they're in. Between the cigarette smoke and the neon lights of the city, he says that in this cutthroat world, there's no point pretending. Says you can't change your roots, and that he's nothing but a washed-up money hunter. He says it with a crooked grin, like he's accepted his own downfall without a hint of drama. Aniagi doesn't know what to say to that, so he awkwardly tries to change the subject, asking how come he's got connections with the cops. Hasuda chuckles a little, like he was asked about a crazy ex, and says it's not quite like that, more like a cursed relationship. But he doesn't stop there. He switches topics again like the last one wasn't worth continuing, and drops the bomb. By the way, the X-God's first match. We're going to watch it. Aniagi looks at him for a second, then lights up and just says, "Okay," like he's been invited to an action movie he's been dying to see. They stroll off down the street, totally looking like underworld execs, while somewhere else, the vibe takes a sharp turn. A furious man slams a knife into a table, shouting at the air how the hell something like this could have happened. He's livid, veins bulging on his face and breathing hard. Turns out he's Sissel's father, dressed like a high-ranking government official, clearly outraged by what happened to his son. He looks frustrated, disappointed, and full of that quiet rage only people who think they're untouchable carry. He grits his teeth, curses Sissel for being a moron, and grabs his phone in anger. He dials someone, and without even greeting them, gives the order, "I want you to take care of him. Get rid of Hasuda." His eyes stare straight at a photo of Hasuda, pinned to the table with the same knife, like he's already signed his death sentence.